I paid $200 for this Steam Deck. Is it worth it? Does it fulfill the needs that I have in mobile gaming? Let's find out. So ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to try to get some sort of game console working in the car with like a portable screen. Like if you've seen on the GameCube, they have the portable LCD that you can flip up open on the console. Same thing with the PS1 and probably something like that with the PS2 and original Xbox. But I've always wanted to just play games on the go, even if it's like console games or even PC games. It was such a dream as a kid because I grew up in the 90s and the mid 2000s. So I pretty much grew up in the era of like the GameCube, the PS2, the PS1, the N64, etc. I remember this one time I bought this TV that went on the back of a headrest and it had the yellow, white, and red inputs for like a game console or a VCR or whatever you have. And I remember hooking up my original Xbox with a power inverter in our car and playing actual Xbox games while my parents would drive down the road. I think that was probably around like 2007 when I was doing a lot of that, but it really even dates back even earlier than that for me. Back, I remember in probably 2003, I remember we went on a road trip. My dad used to have one of those, I think it was either a Dodge conversion van or Chevy. I think it was Dodge though. We had a flip down like 11-inch screen, something like that, 11 or 12-inch LCD screen in the car. It actually had a VCR in that van as well. But of course it had the yellow, white, and red inputs and it had an inverter built into the car. So I remember bringing my GameCube and my N64 and playing games on that screen. So it pretty much just dates back to the early 2000s for me of like mobile gaming and mobile entertainment. But growing up, you know, I had a Game Boy Advance, I had the SP, I had the original DS, and then eventually went to the DS Lite. And then fast forward, I ended up becoming an adult somewhere in the mid 2010s. Then of course in 2017, you have released the Nintendo Switch. Now, I don't really have much wrong to say about the Nintendo Switch. The conformability where you can actually remove the controllers, you could probably set it up somewhere. I mean, it's actually a great console, and especially with some of the mods that you can do, which I won't get into this video, but a lot of the mods that you can do, I mean, playing games on the go, if you want to back up your own game carts or play some homebrew games or play some emulators, you can do that all on the Switch, and it runs it very well. But unfortunately, the Switch does lack the ability to install Windows. And I think that's probably where the Steam Deck really shines. So for me, I like to play a lot of older games. I don't typically play like something too old, but I like to play like mid 2010 games. So like one of my favorite games is Call of Duty World at War, and I love to play Nazi zombies. So I'm always trying to play Nazi zombies on the go. But of course, with my busy lifestyle, I don't ever have time to just sit down at a computer and play games. I mean, with my other job and the shop that I run, it seems almost impossible sometimes to just sit down and be able to play. So whenever you play a PC game, typically you have to be in a specific area with your PC to be able to play. So there are two games in specific, but I do play many other games, but two games in specific that I like to play, and it's Call of Duty World at War, which is a super old game from 2008, and I do like to play the other games as well, the other CODs, but I really like to play Minecraft as well. Now, the Nintendo Switch does have Minecraft, but the problem is Minecraft I just feel like Minecraft is just not optimized for Nintendo Switch. So Minecraft actually does run really well on the Steam Deck. So that was one of the biggest things. I like to play Minecraft, and if I can play it on the go and it runs really well, better than Nintendo Switch, I mean, by all means, this is the one I'm going to go with. And since the Steam Deck runs Windows, that means I can also play World at War, Nazi Zombies. So the question being, am I going to play my Nintendo Switch more? Or I'm going to play my Steam Deck more? Well, obviously, I'm going to pick the Steam Deck over the Switch any day of the week. Now, let me go over some of the features that I really like about the Steam Deck. So this Steam Deck is actually the 64 gig model. The Steam Deck uses a 64 gig eMMC that is swappable. So you can actually take the chip out and replace it with a M.2 NVMe SSD. The question, can you do that with a Nintendo Switch? No, you can't. The other thing is that the Steam Deck also does have a micro SD card slot right here on the bottom. So it has a micro SD card slot, expandable storage, and then of course it has a USB-C port on the top. So you can plug in adapters to a USB-A, etc. Now, the one thing I wish this did have, I wish this did have a big USB-A port. That would have been a really nice add-on for this. It's definitely not something I'm going to cry about, but it would have been really nice to have. even maybe HDMI out or something like that. I mean, it's cool that we do have a headphone jack, but really I would have rather had a USB-A just to make things a little bit easier if I want to plug a flash drive into it or something. Even though I did buy a dongle that goes from USB-C to USB-A, it just would have been nice. So right now, as of the making of this video, the Nintendo Switch OLED costs about $350 in the store right now, and this 64 gig base model of the Steam Deck costs $400. Now the Steam Deck does come with SteamOS installed, which is basically Linux, but if you plug in a flash drive and boot into recovery mode, you can install Windows right away on it. So I can't really compare the Steam Deck to other Steam Deck competitors. I've seen a couple on YouTube before, and I'm not super familiar with them, so I can't really give my opinion on that, especially as far as like CPU comparison, GPU comparison, the scores, the RAM, etc. Unfortunately, I'm just not the person for that. So essentially, the Steam Deck is like a mini gaming laptop in your hands. So you have to think of it like this. So if you do end up replacing the eMMC in your 64 gig Steam Deck, it's actually very simple to do. There are many videos online covering it, but essentially if you replace the 64 gig eMMC chip with a M.2 NVMe drive, you essentially have a lot of computing power at your hands that you can bring with you anywhere. So like I said, it's literally a gaming laptop running Windows that you can take anywhere. It literally is like, I mean, it doesn't get better than that as of right now. So I don't even want to get into emulation or anything like that because I don't typically emulate too many games, almost never. If I'm ever going to emulate something, it's probably going to be Super Mario World on the Game Boy Advance. So by now you've probably figured out what my opinion is on it. Yes, Steam Deck all the way, get a Steam Deck. Now that's just compared to the Nintendo Switch. I've heard that you can actually emulate Nintendo Switch games on the Steam Deck. I don't know if you can do it through Windows or however, I'm sure there's videos online about it, but I did hear about it. So and if you can emulate Switch games, obviously there's probably piracy involved, so just be careful about that. But if you can emulate Switch games, that means you basically have a Nintendo Switch that does everything else that a Nintendo Switch can't do. Now, I don't want to throw the Nintendo Switch out and just say, well, the Switch is just a garbage console. It's not. It's a good console. It's very solid. And especially if you're not going to do what I'm doing, like playing several older games, and that's what I enjoy doing. Some people may enjoy playing Mario or Animal Crossing, and they may even enjoy Minecraft. And if the Switch can do it, then that's their means, and it's easy and it's quick and it's good. So one last thing, I do want to talk about the controls real quick on the Steam Deck and just give my opinion about them. I've owned the Steam Deck now for about 3-ish weeks. So the Steam Deck does have 2 buttons on the back here, and I do find myself pressing those buttons when I don't mean to quite often. So I don't have the map to anything right now. Maybe I'll get used to it in the future, but I did notice that I do that. So I would consider that a con, but one pro that I have, and I absolutely love it, are these touchpads. When you're navigating through Windows and you set one up, like for instance, this side to be your right click and this to be your left, it's amazing. If you're ever going to install Windows on this, there is a program called Handheld Companion that you definitely need to install on it because it's going to remap all of your buttons for how you want to use the Steam Deck. Also completely random, if you'd like to check out a video where I spent 24 hours in my shop, it was brutal. The link will be right here on the screen. I'll see you guys over there.